This time it's Harrison Barnes to the rim. He had 20. Kings back in front by 1. Schroeder. Floater, bouncing. No, Montrezl Harrell, point blank, no. Wild scramble, and it's out of bounds with 2.5 on the clock. Kings fouled. They make free throws. 1.3. That's a pretty good look for a really good shooter. But Kyle Kuzma's just short, and that means that the Lakers head into the break having dropped 7 of 10 games. Got some ground to make up in their quest for the best record in the NBA, and I don't even know that they care about any of that. I think they just want to be healthy for the playoffs, but this is where things stand. Lakers have gone 0-4 against the current top 2 seeds in both conferences, including a 1-point loss to the Sixers and a 25-point loss to the Jazz. Tim Legler with us to take stock of a couple of conference leaders whose first halves completed on Wednesday night with a tremendous game we saw in Philly, talking obviously about the Sixers and the Jazz. Let's start with the Sixers. And Tim, how was this game in many ways a microcosm of the evolution of what Embiid is becoming as a player?
Yeah, I think tonight was a perfect example of, number one, the condition that he's got himself in. To have the stamina to play for 48 minutes the way he's been playing all year. He just hasn't been able to do that earlier in his career. And as a result, they have this unique player that's a combination of raw power, athletic ability, and then an immense amount of skill. And you saw it all on display in this one. And this is all from the last 6 minutes of regulation. 7-1, 275 with the beautiful pump fake up and under. I love this one, Scott, more than any other. 2 efforts. First, makes Mitchell miss the finger roll and then recovers with 1 step to get Gobert at the rim. And this is really what Embiid is at his best. He's just on the unstoppable force in the low post in a one-on-one situation. Another opportunity here. He shows hard on the ball screen, but then recovers all the way to break up that lob, and that's something the Jazz just kill people with every single night. And this is just ridiculous. He looks up at the clock, sees 10 seconds, starts thinking to himself, we might not have time to make this a 2-possession game, so I'm just going to go ahead, dribble out here, up fake, stay on balance. Bogdanovich plays it beautifully, and he just holds his follow-through and bangs out a 25-footer to send the game to overtime. I thought the 50-point game against Toronto a week and a half ago was his signature moment to thrust himself to the head of the MVP conversation. But that was nothing compared to this game. I mean, he did everything humanly possible on both ends of the floor that a guy needs to say, I'm the MVP of this league. And I don't think it's close right now, Scott, based on the fact that the Sixers are number 1 in the East. And I can't imagine what this team would look like without what Joel Embiid has become.
Yeah, I think that he is fully realizing what everybody hoped he might eventually become, right? Be healthy enough, fit enough, and we certainly know skilled enough to put it all on display. And it was there tonight in this one. The Jazz lose, but we've seen a really nice snapshot of who they are. But that's through Christmas, through the bulk of the winter. And Tim, as you look to the second half in the spring and then potentially the summer, what do you believe the Jazz ultimately will be?
I think we looked at 2 teams tonight that are conference finalists. I think ultimately they might run into somebody a little bit better, whether it's the Nets in the East for Philly or the Lakers if AD's healthy in the West. I think this team can beat the Clippers in a best-of-7. So I think they're a conference finalist as their ceiling, and maybe beat the Lakers if they're not fully healthy. And the reason, Scott, because they can attack you in a different way. The way they move it, the way they shoot it, the way they see the floor is special. This is something you're watching right now that's almost unprecedented in this league, the rate at which they are shooting threes. But then they can also beat you by shutting you down defensively. This is one of the top-rated defensive teams in the NBA. So to have that unique combination, that's what you have to do to attack a team like LA. It's got to be something different than the rest of the league brings to the table, and that's what they do. They shoot threes, and then they get you chasing it like they did on that possession, and they've got enough bigs between Favors and Gobert. They've got bigs that can hurt you in the middle once they get you extended. The fact, though, that they always make the extra pass, and it always seems to end up in the hands of a guy that can hurt you, makes them just different than what everybody else has. And with Philly, it's the same thing. Nobody can attack the Brooklyn Nets or any other team in the East the way Philly can because of the unique nature of Embiid's dominance. And that's why I think these 2 teams have something special going on. Philly's going to try to add a piece. If they can, hey, maybe they can take on the Nets and beat them in a 7-game series. But either way, I think both of these teams can get to the conference finals.
Okay, at minimum, conference leaders for a reason, and I think we saw why illustrated in not a 48-minute game, but ultimately a 53-minute game because 48 wasn't enough to sort it out. As always, Tim, your time's appreciated. Look forward to the next time, all right? Well, the house is not a home at the moment. The Rockets have lost a dozen straight. But they did have a ton of good times together. What was that Stein article about 600 and something games, right? Yeah. A whole lot of good history. Beforehand, some kids trying to get some signatures, and then we're told, I guess, you can't do that. I don't know if it's protocol or what's going on, but that's a bummer for the youngsters. As for the introductions, what are we going to hear?
And the other guy, 6'5", out of Arizona State, number 13, James Harden.
And then a video tribute. Harden acknowledges the crowd there. That's during the first timeout. Harden did not wait to put his fingerprints all over this game. Knocks down the three early on, gets into rhythm, setting up others like Bruce Brown. Harden, the drive, and the lay-in. Nearly a triple-double at the half with 14 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and the Nets had a 13-point lead over the Rockets. John Wall doing what he can to try to keep Houston in it. His frustration has been palpable as they have hit this rocky patch. 10-point deficit cut to 8. Wall had a season-high 36. But Harden makes it 11. And very quickly, this got right back out of hand. 1 3, another 3, and it's a triple-double for Harden. Signs his shoes and gets him to the kid who could not get the signature before the game. I can't imagine what the sneakerheads out there would pay for those, because there can't be a whole bunch of those, I wouldn't imagine. Harden, after quite a night, reflecting.
Hopefully I did something right. Obviously I came up short of a championship, but the work on and off the court that I put in over those past 8 years, you know, was elite, you know, and obviously, I think that's the only thing that I didn't do or didn't accomplish is the championship, which is difficult to obtain.
It is that. They took their shot, came up just short. As for this game, Harden accounted for 59 points, scoring 29, assisting on 30 more. Elias tells us that's the most in a reunion game since 2000. 2000. His teammate Kyrie Irving had 56 in his Celtics reunion game this Christmas. Coach Steve Nash, 54 in his first game back against the Mavericks. That was in 2004. Steph and Dame, two of the more lethal scoring guards in the league. Steph with a decided advantage head-to-head in the career, including in the playoffs. Last time out against the Blazers after the beginning of the new year, he had 62. And Steph had 16 in the first, 6 of 9 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3. But the Warriors led by just 1 after that first quarter and prolific shooting display from Curry. Blazers down 7. Carmelo Anthony finds a cutting Lillard. Blazers within 5. Curry. The scoop off the glass. Hit the free throw. Warriors led by 1 after the first, led by 1 at halftime. Late in the third, Blazers down 2. Carmelo. Draymond all up in his space. Bucket good and 1. Now the Blazers lead by 1. Green. Curry, come on. Flips it up, and it bounces for just a split second on top of the backboard, and the Warriors are back out in front. Inside is 6 to go. Warriors down 2. Melo trying to stay close. Take those 3 with you. Warriors up 3. Curry again. Lead is 6. Blazers down 3. Carmelo Anthony cuts the lead to 1. On the other end, Steph would answer with a driving layup. Basically, they ran everybody on the floor at him in a black jersey.
That's 3.
Lillard struggled, but then what time is it? You know the time. He hits the 3. They leave Draymond open, and Draymond buries the 3 to give the Warriors a 1-point lead. Steph leading by 1. Down the lane, it's in. And I have no idea how that comes out. Down 1, Lillard, step back, bottoms. I mean, absolutely lethal. Never exchanged expression. Draymond, blocker charge. Steve said it as they reviewed it. All that matters anymore is are your feet outside of the restricted area. Nobody cares if you're moving. They just call charge 99% of the time. I think Lillard's basically set. Sliding a little, not as bad as some of the block charges. Kerr and the Warriors challenge. It stood up. That did not thrill them. Meanwhile, off the Covington missed free throws, he missed them both. And it turns out that Golden State had a chance. No. Damian Lee misses. Lillard making winning plays.
I think tonight was just another one of those situations. I hadn't been shooting the ball well all night. But, you know, our team was continuing to fight, and we still was in the game. And I just kept telling myself when it comes down to it, and it's time to make winning plays, I got to still be present, had the presence of mind and that same confidence and energy when the game was on the line. And I just came up big again tonight. Draymond, he reads those plays really well. You know, when we chase Steph, he's looking at the guy slipping. When you overplay a handoff, he's keeping it and getting to the rim for easy baskets. And I just had my eye on Draymond because I knew he was trying to figure out a way to manipulate what we were trying to do. And I saw him take off, and once I saw, you know, how fast he was coming to the rim, I was the lag, and I saw the action developing. I knew what the situation was, and once he took off, you know, I just sold out and stayed in for the charge.
So a whole lot of respect between Dame and the Warrior players. An Oakland guy who knows about what they call that town business. And once again, it was business time late. Lillard, 29 game-tying or go-ahead field goals in the final 20 seconds of the game. Since he entered the league, that's the most in the NBA. 7 more.
Nets Rockets, the homecoming for James Harden. He's back in Houston for the first time since forcing a trade to Brooklyn. Says he is hopeful that he will have a nice response. There's expected to be about 3,500 people in attendance at the game.
Have you ever done the chair?
I've never done that.
That's the chair. That's that little.
I've never.
Oh, that's killer.
Well, I'm sure, but you work out, and that's not really anything that I just like to lift wings into my mouth. Let's take a look at the Eastern Conference standings right now. You got the Sixers, Nets, Bucks. They're separated by 2 games at the top of the Eastern Conference. And there's a little gap starting to form between them and the rest of the pack. If you add the Celtics to this group, there's only 4 teams above 500 in the East. Here goes the left coasters. There's 10 teams above 500 in the Western Conference, but enough about that. Stephen A. is joining us because before we get tip-off, we're going to get SportsCenter with Stephen A. here at the top of the hour on ESPN. But I want to stay there. As I mentioned, Sixers, Nets, and Bucks, Stephen A., within 2 of each other. So I'm going to make a declarative statement. Basically, they're all created equal, and the conference is up for grabs, right?
Hell no, they ain't. They ain't created equal. Don't think for one second that the Milwaukee Bucks are on the same level as the Brooklyn Nets or the Philadelphia 76ers for that matter. Even though I'd put Philadelphia closer to the Brooklyn Nets than the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks have a lot to prove. Last couple of years, they really bowed out ungracefully after being up 2-0 to Toronto and folding 4 straight in the conference finals. Last year, getting bumped by Miami the way that they did in the second round in 5 games. They got some things to prove. It's great that they kept the Greek Freak, but Middleton and others need to step up, and Drew Holiday's going to have to validate the fact that he's arrived there for a productive reason. In the case of the Philadelphia 76ers, obviously the pickup of Seth Curry and the play of Tobias Harris, who seems to have his best years whenever he's playing for Doc Rivers, definitely has something to do with it. And Joel Embiid is a monster. He's a top 2 candidate for league MVP right now. Ben Simmons is a defensive player of the year as far as I'm